Okay, so number one, looking at our choices. And again, this was in one of the videos I told you. I always look at the answer choices first to see what the differences are. And I noticed that the difference is and, there's no comma, 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 and. I'm not actually even reading the question. Because I know that items in a series have to have what? Commas. And that's actually correct. So that's one of those areas where you're going to save on time. Because you guys have said numerous times, I don't get finished. This is too short. Well, instead of taking and reading that whole sentence and taking all that time, you go, well, that can't be it. There you go. And then move on. Okay. All right, so number two, but I'll go ahead and explain why. Items in a series, sew, comma, knit, comma, and then crochet. Number two, my siblings and I, so the difference is, okay, so this one I'm going to have to read. Okay. She made my siblings and I scarves for the winter. Okay, the subject of the sentence is actually she. Okay.
Oh, okay, I get it now.
I did the same thing you just did. I focused on just this part. Okay. And since this is your subject, that means you have to use your object pronoun, which means you're going to have to use me. And choices are H and J, and me does not go first, so that means that H is your correct answer. All right, so looking at number three, I see comma sometimes and then a comma. Oh, it's not C. I'm pausing it. Why can you automatically cross out C? All right, no period before and, so cross that one out. And then period sometimes. So now I'm down to A, B, and D. Crossing some out, it always helps you. She liked to use our favorite colors in the scarves. Okay, that is an independent clause. She made for us. Okay, she made for us sometimes. She would combine multiple colors to create more diverse patterns. Now, for me, I'm like, okay, I had to reread that part, so this is going to be one of those I need to think about. And that's one strategy for you. If when you're reading it, you have to stop and go, what? Then you're going to have to think about it, okay? A fourth of the ACT questions they're trying to trip you up in some way, and you're going to have to think about it, okay? This is one of them. So let's think it through. Okay, there's my subject. She liked what? To use our favorite colors in the scarves. Okay. And then, so comma, sometimes she would combine multiple colors. Well, I can't do that because of this comma right there. Okay, that sometimes would not be in a positive, it would be a transition, so I've got to cross that one out. It can't be no change because it threw me off when I was reading it, right? Something has to go here. Well, I've only got one left. D, move on. Okay. Do I really need to, during an ACT time test, go through all the rules as to why it is? No, choose D and move on. Now, I'm going to tell you, scarves, there's our period because from here to here is your independent clause. Okay. And then here's your transition word. She made for us. That's obvious, isn't it? She made for us. That's the speaker. She liked to use our favorite colors in the scarves. Well, it's obviously she made it for them because it's your favorite color, isn't it? It's that redundancy thing. Okay, so you don't need that, so you cross it out. Let's see if I have number 4 on the next slide. Yeah. Number 4. Okay, I'm looking for transitions here. This and, in my mind, means more for the reason that, why am I crossing that one out?
Too much.
And then because is a what? Cause effect. Okay. So now I'm going to look at what's underlined, owing to the fact that, so I'm going to cross out F because it's way too long, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That leaves me with 2.
That's automatic.
And now I'm going to go, is it and or because? I'm going to look at, are they talking about 2 things or are they talking about cause effect? My grandmother's handmade scarves came in handy in the winter when it would snow and they were warm. Nope.
On to the fact just means
Because, so it's J. Very good. Okay, so looking at my answer choices, made, makes, make, I know that I'm looking for the correct verb.
Made.
I know it's not going to be no change, right? Because we want shorter. Okay, let's see. My mother would always remind me of the scarf my grandmother made because this, you've got to stay in past tense. When you have the verbs, you need the whole sentence, okay? Because you have to stay in the correct tense. It has to match for number, and it has to match for past, present, and so forth. Probably should stop moving my arms. All right, next one, 6. Semicolon, period, dash. Wait a minute.
What does dash mean?
That was in that video that I taught you. The one from YouTube. It was the one that wasn't syncing. And I'm going to tell you what I said in that video right now. I remember Miss Smith said that a dash can replace a semicolon and a semi can replace a period. Wait a minute. Semicolon, period, dash. All those 3 can be used in the same rule. Do I need to look at it? No, because they can't put 3 correct answers on there, can they? Okay. And if a dash, a period, and a semicolon are used the same way, they all just mark them out, right? So, F. I will go ahead and tell you why, though. 1 year, okay, that's an introductory phrase. And introductory is a dependent clause. And then you set it off by a comma, and then this is your independent clause. Okay. All right, this one. Everyone look at number 7 and tell me. These are the absolute worst ones because what you have to figure out is the S on the end already there? Like James, it already ends in S, right? Okay. So you have to look at others and you have to go, is it others singular? Is it others plural? Is it possessive? Once you figure that out, then you can apply the rule, right? Okay. Apostrophe S is singular possessive, right? S apostrophe is plural possessive. And so then looking at our sentence, you can do the correct answer. And so at each is singular. So it's other is singular. And so it's other apostrophe S. So it's singular possessive. All right, so that's just one of the things they like to do to mess with you. All right, looking at my answer choices, therefore, nevertheless, and although. What does therefore mean? So you're looking for, is it a cause effect? Is it a contradiction? Or is it a yet? Which is actually very close to nevertheless. So it's one of those you'll have to think about there. So hence, my grandmother remained patient. You would have to read this sentence and then this one and go, well, wait a minute, that's a contradiction. So it's, or nevertheless. Okay. All right, number 9. Although it's got a period there. The scarf's got a period. Okay, I've got to actually read it to figure out what they're wanting me to do. The scarves were not very long, independent clause, comma, but they were good to start. Okay, well, technically that's an independent clause. They were good to start. So it's asking me for what's the best way to write that. I don't like this sentence. They were good to start. It does have your subject and it does have your verb, but it cuts off abruptly. It's like you didn't technically complete your thought. I mean, you did, but the reader's left confused simply because, what do you mean they were good to start? Good to start what? And so I'm going to look at my choices and see if there's anything better. Although the scarves were not very long, okay, and there's a comma, so it's correct, they were good to start. Well, that's better, okay? The scarves were a good start even if they were not as long. That's confusing. We're going to cross that one out. The scarves were not very long, Okay, independent clause, makes sense, comma, but the cousins had a good start. Wait a minute. I'm confused. How does scarves not being very long deal with the cousins having a good start? Okay, it's not worded well. Okay, it's a confusing sentence. So that leaves me with A and B, and then when I look at which one's worded more clear, it's going to be B. Okay. All right, number 10, the difference between them is meant, and then this comma, so that's what I'm looking for. My grandmother's scarves is plural, which means I need a plural verb. Mean with an S is singular, so I need mean over here, plural. This is mean is my plural verb. Okay. Looking over here, I'm looking for the correct verb. Now remember what it talked about in the video with sentence structure? Short is better. So had, does, had, did. Crossing those out. Okay. And then I'm going to look for does versus did. So now I have to look at the sentence. My grandmother's scarves means a lot to me because they remind me of all the wonderful things she, did, because does, she's doing it right now, right? But it's talking about the past, so it's did. All right, number 12, looking at verbs again. Crossing that one out, were always too wordy. So was always, is, and are. Uh-oh. I just crossed out were always because it was wordy. And then I'm looking over at my underlined part, and I see was always. So my brain is going, Miss Smith, that strategy is not the right one here. Remember that the strategies I give you don't work for 100% of the questions. Okay? They work for the ones where they're testing the skills on redundancy. Okay? This obviously is not one of those questions. So I'm actually going to put a little question mark right there and double check it. Instead, what I see now is was, were, is, are. They're testing plural and singular. Okay. So I'm looking for, what is my subject? She is singular. I need a singular verb, so I'm crossing out J and I'm keeping G out. So I'm looking at F and H. She is there to make us smile with her warm welcomes and increasing love, or was. Wait a minute. This is her grandmother. It's reminding her. It's in the past, so it is no change. Okay. You see how if you just think about it, okay, the questions themselves aren't that difficult. It's the timing issue that is throwing you off. Okay, 13, comma since, no because. All right, so I'm looking for transitions with a comma. I'm a better person today because, it's not A. You don't put a comma before the word because. Okay. I'm a better person today since I grew up with her in her life. Well, it's not since because it's a cause effect, isn't it? So I'm going to look at because. It's punctuated correctly. We're good to go. 14. One day, oops, I'm going to look at my answer choices. I actually did that before I talked, but I want to walk you through it. I see commas. So I'm looking at commas. I'm looking at my original sentence. It's the beginning. So I know I'm looking at introductory phrases. Okay. One day, and there's a comma here as well. So I'm going to cross out G and J because we know introductory phrases have a comma, and both of those do. When I became a grandparent, well, that's a dependent clause. So I'm not going to set it off by when. I got to complete my clause, so that's F. Okay. So you have an introductory phrase with a dependent clause. All right. The writer's considering adding the following to paragraph 1. This is one of those strategies. You have to decide what score you want. For the honors and the advanced honors kids, they need these because they need in the high 20s and 30s for their scholarships. If you guys are going to, like I know that some of you are going to play ball and you need a higher score, you're going to need this question correct. But for some of you who are just looking to do well, you're going to go to a community college, and 18, 19 is fine. This is what I was talking about, where it's better to skip these long questions and get done and come back if you have time, versus only getting to question 30 because it took you forever to read this passage. The first 14 questions, we did not have to read the passage on, did we?
No.
But you do for 15. And so this is one of those where if you know you're not going to get done because you are a slow reader, get to 15, guess, and move on.
I knew it was A or B. I put B.
Well, if you do that, if you just know that you're not, if you're going to skip the last question on all 5 passages because you're not going to get done if you read the passages, then you can still hit probably 25 to 26, okay, if you get a majority of the others right, which is still an excellent number. But for some people, they need that higher one, and so they have to read the passages to get this. You determine your strengths and weaknesses. If you are an extremely low reader and you never get done, okay, in every test that we've taken, you've only gotten to number 10, 15, or 20, isn't it better to just look at those questions, okay, and get done with the test, okay, and get them right and just guess on 5? Because there's 5 questions on the English portion you have to actually have read the passage to answer. You might get one of those 5 right, okay? You make that call. Okay? We didn't actually read the passage, so tell me what you guys got on this for those of you that read it. You said what?
I put B.
Okay, so you knew it was A or B, okay? What was the whole passage about for those of you that read it? Love. Okay. Okay, so yes, because it makes the passage flow more smoothly and fits with the overall theme. Oh, the theme was love, overall theme. There we go. Okay.